Welcome today's speaker, Dr. Satish Shivashankaran. He is an interventional cardiologist in Tampa Bay, Florida. He obtained his education from Chennai, London, and USA.
Deeply inspired by Swami Vivekananda, Satish spends his time on learning Hindu scriptures and philosophy. He practices yoga and meditation regularly.
Thank you. I would like to thank Nishaji for having invited me here to talk in front of you all. It's a great opportunity. Thank you, Nisha. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. I know you guys have been bombarded for the last week with Bhagavad Gita. So we will make it as simple, as palatable, and to the very basic level that you can understand. Okay? I will have time for questions. Okay. I come from Tampa. Tampa has high-rise buildings like New York. No skyscrapers. Nisha got me in time before the snow in New York. But Tampa is also home to hibiscus and also to jasmine. We have a good sunshine all the year round. So this is what I do for a living. This is a picture showing the arteries in the heart. So you can see that there is a blockage in one of the arteries. The black represents the dye going through the arteries. So you can see on the left there is less dye or no dye almost in the middle area. And on the right, you see that is gone. So this is somebody who came in with a heart attack, and that is a picture before putting a stent in, and that is a picture after putting a stent in. So you see this, there's a stent which opens up the blockage. So that is what I do for a living. Now it'll be much easier to talk about this to you, to make it very simple, but Gita is a big subject. So that is a picture of a stent. Okay, so that's a metal scaffold which is over a balloon, and that is a stent which opens up the blockage. And the blockage happens because there's a lot of plaque deposition or lipids deposition within the vessels. So the stent opens up the artery, there's good flow going in the blood vessels, the patient feels better. We always do disclosures for all my talks. Okay. My disclosures for this talk are: I do not know Sanskrit. I do not know the verses, 700 verses in the Gita by heart, or the Vedas by heart, and I'm not an expert on Gita. But I'm still going to try and talk to you and convince you what message Gita has for you all. Okay? I'm sure you all have seen this picture many times. Now, Hinduism is a very old religion. Do you know how old it is? Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
Too long to count.
Too long to count. Yes. It's almost 5,000 years before Christ. 5,000 years before Christ. So, the Indo-Aryans had this form of religion in a very early form, and all the Vedas were compiled 2,000 years, 2,500 years before Christ. So you guys have got to be proud to be a Hindu. You're one of the oldest religions known to mankind. Okay. Now some people do not know that Hinduism exists, or Hinduism is no religion. I was talking to one of my patients the other day, and we had a brief conversation. We dwelled apart from medicine, and I said, well, she asked me, are you a Christian? So I said, no, I'm a Hindu. So you don't believe in God? I said, no, I'm a Hindu and I believe in God. So what I'm trying to tell you is some people do not know that other religions exist apart from their own. Okay? And Hinduism, which is one of the very ancient religions, still believes that other religions will coexist, and there are many pathways you can lead to God. Now this is, Hinduism has many different subdivisions. So if you want to, under Hinduism comes the Vedas, the Upanishads, part of the Vedas. There's about 108 Upanishads. Then you have the mythologies or the Smritis, things like Manusmriti, or what is others commonly known are Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, and Ramayana. I'm sure you know all of these. Okay? There is other sects like Sanskaras and Tantrikas. So these are all parts of Hinduism. Okay? Now Mahabharata is actually written by Vedavyasa. This is a war between good people and bad people. Okay? The good people were Pandavas, and the bad people were Kauravas. And the Pandavas and Kauravas were related. Okay? So they were actually cousins. And this is a real story. It happened in a place called Kurukshetra, the battle. And this is a real place which is about 100 kilometers from Delhi. Okay? So this war between the good and the evil is what constitutes Mahabharata. And Bhagavad Gita is a small portion of this epic called Mahabharata. Okay? So, what is Gita? I have a famous joke. So, one of the grandfathers, elderly person in India, was asking his grandson, what is Gita? So he immediately said, oh, you mean auntie next door, Gita? So the concept, so that's, Gita is also a name. So Gita literally means the song. It means a song. So it is this, Bhagavad Gita is a celestial song. It is a divine song spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. Okay, so Arjuna is the warrior here who you see sitting, and Lord Krishna is his charioteer. So he is trying to teach him, and in turn teach us all about what Bhagavad Gita is. So that is a component of Mahabharata. I just wanted to bring this in a broad outline before we go further. I put this slide in to show you different professions and different occupations. Not that I'm going to talk too much about them, but to do any profession or any job, if you have to be a doctor, if you have to be a painter, if you have to be a musician, if you have to be a cameraman, you still have to read for it and train for it. Okay, so just, coming out of the blue one day, somebody can't say, well, I want to be a doctor. Just coming out of the blue, somebody can't say, I want to be an attorney. Okay, so you have to go through the right course or right training to be what you want to be. Okay, if you have to extrapolate this, life at large is like a profession. Okay. And nobody teaches us how to lead this life. Correct? Nobody gives you guidelines, correct? So the guidelines we get are from our parents. Okay, so we ask our parents, right, wrong, should I do this? Some people don't even, but some people ask parents. But there are definite guidelines as to how to lead your life, how to conduct your life. Okay, so and these guidelines is the Holy Bible. Okay, you can call it Bible, you can call it Gita, you can call it Quran. So that's where religion comes into play. So religion is a guidelines for us to lead our lives. So if we have an issue in our life, so if I have a problem, now I did my training, if I have a problem, or if Dr. Nisha has a problem, she goes back to her books. Okay, she goes back to her books and reads, okay, to see what the issue is. So similarly, to extrapolate this, life at large, we face many problems. You guys are young. So, when you face problems and you want to go back to, parents don't live forever and ever. Okay, there will be a time when, there will be no more. So, at that point, if you have a problem, or you have to get back to some guidelines, and Bhagavad Gita is a good guideline to get back to help you understand how to conduct your life. Now, to drive a car, you do have to know driving. Okay? Without learning to drive, you cannot drive a car. Now, I did my training in London, and I got my license the 5th time. Okay, the rules were very strict. Very, very strict. Unlike America. Okay, so if you made a single mistake, wrong. So I had a guy, who was sitting next to me. He was the examiner, and he knew I was a doctor. I was a cardiologist. So he asked me a lot of questions because his father had heart disease. So he was at risk for heart disease. And so, I was talking to him while I was driving, and when I finished, after an hour, I thought I passed. And he said, "Sorry, doctor, to let you know you failed. And this was your mistakes." Okay, so when a situation was different in America, I got it the first time. So to know to drive, you have to know how to drive. You have to learn to drive. Okay, but you don't have to be a mechanic to drive. Okay, you don't have to know the ins and outs of what is beneath an engine to drive. Okay. Similarly, you don't have to be a Swami. You don't have to be a Swamiji to know Gita or to adopt Gita to your life. Okay. So this is a very vital concept. So you don't have to be a mechanic to drive. You can still drive, but you don't have to know what a carburetor is. You don't have to know where the gasoline engine is, and you can all drive, okay? So, you don't have to read the Vedas by heart. You don't have to know Sanskrit, okay? These books are all translated into English. You don't have to master them by heart. You can still adopt these principles. You can still adopt these principles in your daily life, in practice. And these will come very handy when you're facing a problem. And if you don't know how to drive, this is what happens. Now, this is a very important concept. The Gita Mahatmyam says, Upanishads are the cows. Sri Krishna is milking these cows. Arjuna is the calf. He's waiting to drink the milk. And the wise drink the milk called the Gita. So this puts into perspective where each and every one of these people stand in the Gita. Now this is a very important piece in the Bhagavad Gita. Arise, O prince, give up this faint-heartedness, this weakness, stand up and fight. I was speaking to somebody who is an atheist. And this is what he told me about Mahabharata and Gita. He said, God tells cousins to fight against each other. And that is not the message. That is exactly the opposite of the message. So, So faint-heartedness. So this is a message which Lord Krishna gives Arjuna. So arise, O prince, from your slumber. So he was not actually sleeping. Okay, he was sleeping in his thought process, and give up this faint-heartedness. So he asked my son yesterday, who's 8 years old. I was trying to teach him, and I said, "Do you know what ether teaches you?" He said, "No." He said, "It teaches you to be brave." So he burst out laughing. He said, "Ha ha ha! We are all brave." So the faint-heartedness here means the fickleness of a human mind. Just like you see waves in the ocean, just like you see ripples in a lake, we all have this faint-heartedness. We all have this confusion going on within us. Okay, whether we accept that or not, at any level. Should I do this or not? You know, should I go become a lawyer? Should I go become a doctor? Okay. Should I do this today? Should I go for the movies today? Or should I sit and read today? Okay, should I go to the temple today? So we all have this ups and downs or this confusion happening. Okay? So faint-heartedness means inability to make a decision. Okay, so when your mind is faint-hearted or has this chanchala or fickle-mindedness, it is very hard to make a decision. Okay, so he says, you know, give up this faint-heartedness. So he is asked to fight against his own cousins. So he's in a chariot there, and Krishna takes him to the battlefield, and he sees all his cousins. And he was ready to fight before, because they want the kingdom, and these people are supposed to get the kingdom, the Pandavas. They have the right to the kingdom. And the Kauravas, you know, he sees his uncles, his teacher, everybody there, and he loses it. He says, now I don't want to fight. You know, this is my uncle, you know, I don't want to kill him. But these are bad people. Okay? It doesn't mean kill your uncle. Okay? So these are bad people, and you have to stop being faint-hearted and rise up for the cause. Okay? So stand up and fight. So if you believe in something very hard or very strong, you ought to make it happen. Irrespective of what the world thinks. Okay, if you think something is right and you have good backup and good reasoning, you have the power to make it happen. Okay? I will give you a story, my own story. We talked about taking the driving test the 5th time without losing hope. So I was going to come to America, and the first time when I came in from England, I applied, and I got a job somewhere in Pennsylvania, but I wanted a H-1 visa. So, you know, people said don't come on a J-1, so I wanted a H-1 visa. So I told them, they said fine, the job starts, residency starts in July. So the visa came like, you know, September, and a letter came to me saying you no longer have the job because you were late in joining. So I told Nisha the story the other day. So you were late in joining. So I got a letter, I got my visa, but did not get my job. Okay? So I still had a job in England, I was still working. So, and what I did was to reapply the next year. You can only apply once every year. So I spoke to these people and said, well, now I have a visa, you know, will you take me? They said, okay, you can apply. Okay, I should apply. So I applied to them, hoping they would take me because they took me the first time. They didn't take me the second time either. So, well, they took me the first time, and because I couldn't join on time, they felt, well, this guy did not help us, basically, so they did not take me in the second time. So and not get it the second time either. Okay. So I applied again the third time, and I was lucky, and I got it and moved on. So had I gotten stuck with thinking, well, I cannot make it, I would not been able to make it. So similarly, I was just giving you an example, but similarly in life, we have this fickle-mindedness, faint-heartedness, preventing us from making a decision at each point in time. Okay? So what Krishna was actually telling is, give up this faint-heartedness, give up this fickle-mindedness. You have come here to fight. Okay, you're a warrior, you know these people are bad, and your job is to fight as a Kshatriya, as a prince. So, I want you to rise and fight, and this is your time. So he was actually giving that message to all of us. But this is a beautiful message which Gita has. This is a very powerful slide. Okay, this has the whole snapshot of the 100 plus Upanishads. Okay. If you can understand this, you've understood Upanishad. I will try my best to make you understand this. Okay, so you've seen circles inside circles. Okay, so we have a body here. Okay, we have a sense organs. There are 5 sense organs. Okay? Like eyes, mouth, taste, skin, and ears. Okay, so we tend to identify ourselves with our sense organs. So, we go to a jewelry shop, we see a beautiful jewelry there, our eyes see that, and immediately we want it. Okay, we want to possess it. Okay. So you see something which smells very good, a food which smells very good, and you want to taste it. So we work with our senses. So we identify ourselves with our senses. But Hinduism tells us there is 2 other layers. Okay, these were all devised. This concept was 5,000 years before Christ. So it tells us there are layers, there are different layers. It is not just your sensory. Okay, there is a different layer called mind, which is an inner layer, which makes you think. Okay, should I do this or not? Okay, should I go to the movie or not today? Okay, should I go to the temple or not today? Okay, should I marry him or not? Should I make that decision? Okay, so what thinks is the mind? Okay, now there is even an inner layer called Atman or Brahman. Now that layer is present each one of us. Okay, that is what is called the true self. So the inner layer, or the Brahman, is a true self. So Hinduism says we are all divine, meaning we are all good. So inside of us is this good Atman present. So we are all inherently good, but we don't know that we're good. Okay? So we have to unveil that to know that we're good. And we don't know we're good. That's why we are what we are. Okay? Because we identify ourselves with our sense organs. We think we are the eyes, we think we are the ears, we think we are the mouth. But we don't know that we are the master of our sense organs. We don't know that we have the control over our sense organs. So if I don't want to go for the movie today, I will not go because I have the power to make that decision. It is me that makes that decision. I will control my mind or tell my mind that, well, yes, let's think that way, and we will watch the movie. Okay, I will tell my mind, yes, let's go here, or let's read. Or I will tell my mind, let's be a doctor, or let's be an attorney. So, the inner I, or the Brahman, is present in everybody, and it is all pervasive. So, it is present in each one of us, but we don't know that it exists. So we live in ignorance. That's my dog. So you wouldn't expect a dog to bring a paper, although you've heard about it. I've shown that to you. So, now the reason that I've brought this slide up is not just to show my dog and all my family members, but to tell you that just like a dog can be trained to do what you want him to do, on a similar note, you can train your eyes, your ears, your mouth, your sensations to listen to you. To listen to you, to listen to what you want them to do. You watch the dog, going halfway through and then looking back at me, asking me what I want him to do. Yes, go get the paper, and then comes back. So there is that fickle-mindedness, back again, coming up. There's Chanchalam coming back again. He's looking at me, what should I do? Should I take the paper? So he goes there, and he gets the paper, and he gets his own instinct. He wants to, rip the whole thing up. That's the dog's instinct. But I instruct him to bring the paper, and he does beautifully. So similarly, you can all train yourself to do what you, which is the inner you, want to do. Okay? If you guys want to be whatever, you can be whatever. But the inner you has to make that decision. And everything has to be clear for you to make that decision. It doesn't come like that. It doesn't come spontaneously. You got to realize the inner you to actually make that decision. So you can see here, ignorance. So these people don't know that the shark is behind them. Okay? So, and ignorance is not bliss. And there is no darkness but ignorance. So, what I'm trying to tell you is Hinduism tells us that we are all potentially divine. Each one of our souls is potentially divine. And we all have that divinity. But people have not realized that. We don't know that we are inherently good. That the bottom of us is good. Okay? Now this is a glass tumbler. Okay, so you fill that up with water, right? So this glass tumbler has to be filled with something. So if it is filled with water, and then you try to fill it with something else, what happens? It would take it. It's filled with water. So, similarly, this explains our mind. Okay, so we have a capacity to fill our mind with something. And we have to make sure we fill it in the right thoughts. Okay? Because otherwise, bad thoughts will come in. So we have to fill, and this is what Hinduism teaches us, this is what the Vedas teaches us. So, you have to fill your mind with good thoughts, the right thoughts. If not, something else will fill in. Okay? And we all know what this is. You guys have crossed this stage already. My son is still in that stage. So, monkey bar. So here, I brought this slide up to show you, how do you go across a monkey bar? From one end to the other. Vijay?
You climb the rungs.
You climb the rungs. So you have to hold on to the one before and then hold on to the one forward to move forward. Correct? So if you keep holding on to the back one, you cannot move forward. Right? So similarly, if you have to move forward in life, realize your goals, move higher, you have to hold on to the bar that is forward. You have to move forward and hold on to a higher ideal. So, similar to a glass of water, so you have to fill it up with something. Okay, so you have to fill it up with good thoughts. So you have to hold a higher ideal and leave the old ones. Okay, so say you want to become something in life. Because I'm talking to students here, the talk will be diverted to something else, we just tell us. But if you want to become something in life, you've been a bad student, and you keep thinking, well, I'm a bad student, I can't do this. But if, like I said, we're all potentially divine. We all have the ability to do it. Okay, so you have to leave that thought away and move forward to the next step, like a monkey bar. Hold on to, yes, I can do it. Let me move forward. Because if you don't leave the old thought, you're not moving forward. In the monkey bar, you're not going forward. Okay, so you have to leave the old thought and then move forward. Cling on to a new thought, stick to it, and move forward. Very important. Okay, so very important concept. If you have to move forward, you have to forget, or you have to realize that, yes, I'm good, I can do this. Yes, I've been bad. I've been a drunkard, I've been, bad student, whatever. I've not been nice, but yes, I can change. I'm going to forget what I've been and move forward. So to work alone, you have the right, not to the fruit. Never let the fruit of your work be the motive for your work. But don't be attached to inaction either. Okay. So this is a very important message in Bhagavad Gita. So this is the message of Karma Yoga. Okay, so what it means is if you have to do something in life, okay, you have an end result, and if you keep thinking about the end result, now all you're going to occupy that last tumbler is with an end result. So in effect, you forget the means to do it. So do not think about the end result while working. Okay, that does not mean you should not have any goals or any targets. Okay, which is inaction. Okay, so you have to have a goal in life. You have to be somebody in life. You have to be a good son, good daughter, good parent. But if you have a goal in life, if you keep thinking about the goal all the time and not thinking about the means to achieve it, you're not getting anywhere. Okay, so the means are as important as the end product. So you have the end product where you want to reach. Yes, you have that written down somewhere. And you got to find out the means to get there. Okay, to get to your end product. So, but if you keep thinking about the end product all the time, you're not going anywhere. Okay, so this was the message that Krishna, gave Arjuna. So don't worry about the results while doing your work. So whenever you're doing your job or work, or whatever you do not think about the end result. Okay, the end will come. The result will come, whatever you want, you will achieve and get. But think about the means to do it. As to how can I do this? How can I achieve what I want? Let me focus on the means to do it. Let me focus on the means rather than the end. So one of the ways, they say, is to work, is work like a slave. Okay, so when you work like a slave, and don't work like a master. So when you work like a slave, you're working for somebody. Okay, so you know, you're doing the work, you're not worried about the result. Okay, so the master, let him think about the result. All you think about is working. The end result will come. If you work good enough, if you work hard enough. Okay. So to maintain our body is work in itself. Okay. So you think when you're sleeping, our body is not working, but our body is working when we're sleeping. Okay. Our heart is pumping 72 times a minute. You know, our nervous system is working. Our whole system is working. So to even the basal maintenance of human body itself is work. So Gita says that we cannot escape work. So work is inherent in us. But your attitude to work, you should have the right attitude to work. Okay? So to develop the right attitude to work, if you feel or you think, you know, you're working for God, you know, leave the results to God, let me work. Okay, let me do my job. Okay, whatever comes, let it come. Okay, so if I don't make it, I'll do it next time. Okay, so that is a vital message, you know, with Gita. So here, this is a little difficult concept to understand. You know, work for work's sake equals non-work. Okay, so here we go back to that slide, you know, where I showed you the body, the mind, and the Atman. So there, if you've realized your true inner self, if you've realized your true inner self, and you're working, which means you're working for work's sake, you're not working for the result, you're not working to get something, okay? So sometimes we're nice to people because we want something from them, okay? So there's always a return expected, okay? But if you do something for work's sake, you know, just for the sake of doing it, okay? So that is equivalent to non-work, meaning you're not attached to your work. You're not attached to the results of your work. Okay. So there was a rose gardener, you know, who loved his roses so much. So he was so attached to us. He took care of his roses. You know, he planted them. You know, he watered them, and every day, and he had beautiful roses. So one of his friends invited him, you know, for a vacation. And friend said, "Well, I will pay for your vacation. You know, I'll take care of all the expenses completely." But, you know, he could not leave his roses and go. So he was actually attached to his roses, so much so that he could not leave and go. So that is attachment. So Gita tells you to get away from that attachment. So if you do work for work's sake, meaning you're not worried about the results, that is equivalent to non-work, which means you have the freedom. You're not tied to your work. Okay, so this will come if you realize your inner self. So non-work is not abstinence. So non-work is not staying away from work. Okay, so non-work is freedom from attachment to work, which is not doing it. Okay, so this is one of the important messages in Gita. He who sees himself as non-working while working, and knows that abstinence from work, which is escaping from work, is far from non-working, is a true yogi. Okay, so yoga actually is union of yourself with the divine. Okay, so union of yourself with your higher self, which is your divine self. Okay, so he who sees himself as non-working while working. So when you're working, you're actually non-working because you're not attached to the results of the work. So if you work, you're not attached to the results. So, and who knows that escaping from work is far from non-working is a true yogi. So once we realize our true self, or a true divine self, or true inner self, we'll be able to stop work and get away. Okay. So much so that I love working as a heart doctor. So I should be able to stop work and get away and do something else. I have some hobbies. I do singing, some reading, some singing. I have into scriptures. So I should be able to stop work and get away. So which means I'm not attached to my work, although I'm working. I love my work, but I'm still not attached to my work. So that is the way that the scriptures, Gita tells you to work. So what are the laws of success? So do not give in to weakness of any kind. You're talking about mental weakness. Okay. So should I do it? Should I not do it? So do not give in to weakness. Okay. So if you strongly think you should do something, go ahead and do it. And the rest will follow. And face it. Okay. So do not give in to weakness of any kind. Very important. Harmonize your thoughts and words. So many times we speak something without actually meaning it. Like you walk out of the door, you see somebody say Hawaii without even meaning. Once they start telling you their problems, you know what? I'm not feeling well today, I have issues. You don't have the time to listen, you still keep walking, but you got to harmonize or learn to harmonize your thoughts and words. So your thoughts should reflect your words, or your words should reflect your thoughts. Okay. So then we don't have a problem. But if your words, you say something, you mean something else, okay, you have a problem. There's a conflict of thoughts and words. So the laws of success, let's say, 1 is do not give in to weakness of any kind, number 1. Number 2 is harmonize your thoughts and words. So if your words reflect what you're thinking, half the problem is solved. So if you know yourself, which means we talked about that slide where we said the body, the mind, and the inner self for the Atman. So if you realize your inner self for the Atman, your words will reflect what you think. Okay, so what you think will be your words, and your words will be action. Okay, so your words, your thoughts, words, action. They all have to mirror. They all have to be in a straight line. So if they don't be in a straight line, we have a problem. Then we worry about why we're not able to do something. Correct? Okay. So, what do we need in order to succeed? So we need to be at the right place at the right time. You've heard this statement many times. You ought to be at the right place at the right time to get something. Okay, there's a job offer. If you don't know, there's a job offer, you don't apply. Okay, so, but if you know and you haven't applied, you think, well, I'm not going to get that job. You haven't applied and you don't know. So unless you've applied, you don't know. So you have to be at the right place at the right time to get something. You have to have an energetic personality. You have to think good about ourselves. So remember I showed you the monkey bar? Very important. You have to forget what you were before. Forget it. Think about the future. This is what I want. So hold on to the next monkey bar. And that's how you move forward. Okay, if you don't hold on to the forward bar, you'll never move forward. So you have to have a vibrant personality. You saw my dog? So, powerful and trained sense organs. So you have to train all your senses to listen to you. Okay? You have to train them to listen. So if your eyes want to see something, you have to tell it to see something. Okay, so if you want to taste something, you should want to taste something. Your inner self should want to taste something. Not because somebody says something about it. Okay, so you digest that information and go back to your inner self and say, what do you, your inner Atman, want to say? And you want to train your senses. So if you want to sleep, you should want to sleep. You should want to sleep. Okay, so if you want to take a walk, you should want to take a walk. Okay, so once you've trained your sense organs to listen to you, you will succeed. Repeated efforts. I told you about my repeated efforts of taking the driving test. Okay, so you have to try, and try again. Never give up. Okay. And of course, there has to be a divine intervention. In spite of all what you do, there still has to be that external factor which helps you. Okay. So this is a beautiful mountain in Switzerland. Now you see, the reason I put this slide up is to show you all the tracks which are curved. Okay. So this applies to our life. It's never straight. It's always curved. Okay. Now, you worry, I lost my mother when she was 58 from ovarian cancer. Okay. So I felt bad about it. I cried. But it was good for her. You know, she was suffering. And I looked around and I felt bad saying, well, you know, I lost my mother. But there are equally other people who lost their mothers too, fathers, or their son. Okay, so life is never straight for anybody. Okay, everybody has problems. Everybody has problems. They don't tell you they have problems. Everything looks good. They smile when you see them. But they all have problems. It's like a family life or married life. You know, there is no family life without a fight. Okay, between husband and wife. So if they tell you, you know, oh, we don't fight at all, you know, they're lying. Okay, so every life has its twists and turns. So that is common. But what is different is how you look at it, or how you take it. And that is the inner you, how you have an attitude. You know, what is your attitude towards that twist and turns? Okay, how you adapt it. Talking about perception. Okay. What do you all see? I'm sure half see something else, the other half see something else.
I think both at once.
Two people facing each other, okay? So two people facing each other. The center, I see a different hourglass there, or a cup there. Do you see that? So, life is such. Depends on how you see it. Depends on your perception, how you view it. What is your attitude to this? Okay.
That slide one more time. Somebody can see the people.
Okay. Do you see the two people there?
Okay, now you see it.
Okay. Do you see the center in hourglass or the... Yeah, you see that. So, I brought this slide up to show you and tell you that all roads lead to one. Okay. So, Hinduism is a very tolerant religion. Okay. It gives you many different options. Okay. You could be bad guy. Yes, you know, God is with you. You know, you could be a good guy. You know, there are different kinds of people. You know, some people are very emotional. You know, they react very emotionally. You know, and some people are very intellectual. You know, they question everything. They want to know why. You know, why should I do this? You know, like my son, 8-year-old, questions me, Dad, why should I do this? You know, inquisitive. Okay, so some people are like that. You know, some people have a meditative tendency. Okay, they like to meditate. Okay, and some people, they're good at their work. You know, they want to work. You know, they don't go to the temple. So you really don't even have to go to the temple. Okay, so they call this different forms of yoga. You know, they call this as a bhakti yoga for people who are emotional. Okay, so if you're emotional, you follow bhakti yoga. Okay, so you go to the temple, you pray, you know, see God. But if you're intellectual, you inquire. You know, you follow jnana yoga, which is, you know the inner self. You know, the diagram I showed you. You know, body, you know, mind, and inner self. You know, you inquire, find your own inner self. Okay, if you meditative, you follow the Raja Yoga, which is yoga, which is meditation. Now there are many different sects of these. Okay, so Hinduism says, you know, there are different kind of people, and God is for everybody. It's not just it's not just to the priests, it's not just to the Swamijis, it is for each and every one of you. And each and every one of you is potentially divine, which is what the Advaita philosophy believes. There is God in everybody. Okay? It's just that we don't realize that divinity. Okay? So there are many different paths. So Krishna says, there are different kind of people. People call me, when they are, distressed. Some people call me, when they're distressed. When they have a problem, they call me. They don't think of me. Some people think of me when they have a problem. When something goes wrong, oh God, oh Christ. You've heard the statement, Jesus Christ. So Krishna says that there are people who are inquisitive or intellectual. They get to me through an intellectual pathway. They analyze and find out, God. There are those kind of people. Then there is common people, who pray, regular people who pray and get to me. The people who do pujas every day, they can still get to me, by doing pujas. So you occupy that tumbler or the glass with something. And that something could be God, something could be work, okay? So you have to occupy that glass tumbler, if not something else will creep in. Hinduism also accepts that all roads lead to God. There is one finality, whether you take Jesus. In fact, there's many similarities between the life of Jesus Christ and Krishna. Okay, so plenty of similarities. Okay, so Buddha, if you Buddhism, you will still reach God. Okay, if you follow Jesus Christ, you will still reach God. But some religions do not believe that other religions exist. Okay, they believe only their religion exists. But Hinduism is a very tolerant religion, like I told you. So it accepts that, yes, you're a Christian, you follow Christianity, you will still reach God. Just follow Buddhism, Jainism, you will still reach God. So how do you reach that inner self or the Atman? One of the ways to reach the inner self or Atman is to meditate. So when you meditate, you can actually realize your inner self. Okay, there are very different kinds of meditation. So when you meditate, meditation is not just concentration. It is focusing. There's an ultimate form of meditation called samadhi meditation, where you focus on nothing. You let the thoughts just go. You sit simply, just observe your thoughts and know that you're not your thoughts. You're beyond your thoughts. So that way, you realize in yourself. Now, anybody can meditate. Okay, so you don't have to go to the Himalayas to meditate. So anybody can practice meditation. And you don't have to meditate the whole day, 15 minutes a day. I think I'm coming to an end here and my time is up. So, words of some great people on Gita. So when I read Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. It was said by Albert Einstein. I hesitate not to pronounce the Gita the performance of great originality, of sublimity, of conception, reasoning and diction, almost unequaled, and a single exception amongst all the known religions of mankind. It was said by Lord Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of British India. Gita is the greatest gospel of spiritual works ever yet given to the race of achieved national heritage or hope for the future, said Sri Aurobindo, who was a great Indian nationalist. Swami Vivekananda said, the teaching of Krishna as taught by the Gita are the grandest the world has ever known. He who wrote that wonderful poem was one of those rare souls whose lives sent a wave of regeneration through the world. The human race will never again see such a brain as says who wrote the Gita. Mahatma Gandhi, father of India, said the Gita is a universal mother. She turns away nobody. Her door is wide open to anyone who knocks. A true votary of Gita does not know what this disappointment is. He ever dwells in perennial joy and peace that passeth understanding, period. But that peace and joy come not to the sceptic or to who is proud of his intellect or learning. It is reserved only for the humble in spirit. So we are to be humble in spirit, who brings to her worship a fullness of faith and undivided singleness of mind. There never was a man who worshipped her in that spirit and went back disappointed. Her means implies Gita. So since I bought my dog, I can't show you my family. So these are my two eyes, Advait and Siddharth. They're 8 and 4, 9 and 4. That's my wife. Thank you. Any questions? So that means everybody's understood what I just said. Very good. Thank you.